This is an artist called Gagindranath Tagore. Gagindranath Tagore was the nephew of Rabindranath Tagore. So he was one of the pioneers of Indian art. He was one of the first to take from the rest of the world, absorb it. He was one of the first great social satirists. He was one of the first great artists who sort of commented on certain hypocrisies and double standards of India when no one else was sort of taking that through art. So basically we are then showing the Himalayas and open up this vast world. Okay, and the great photographs from, these were taken at the highest level, 28,000 feet, where a photographer had gone at that stage. This is the Badrinath cave, and these are the great R.R. Bhardwaj, one of the great pioneering pictorialists of photography. Now I assume photography also you're not taught? All right. Do any of you know what those temples are? No? Any of you been to Kashmir? Kaun sa temple hai? Matan. It's one of the great sun temples of India. Any of you? This is Nicholas Roerich. Nicholas Roerich was a great Russian thinker, peace activist, artist, philosopher, explorer, writer, and he came to India and he discovered for the Russians and for his own journey the Himalayas and the great grandeur of the color that the light would bring at different stages of exploring the Himalayas. Swaminathan, the mountain bird tree series, one of India's great artists and colorists. Let's move forward and let's come here. You see this wall? This wall is trying to show in glimpses the relationship between animals, humans, nature, and the cosmos. So it's one of the research categories in one's India Studies framework. And over here, now all of you, any of you been to Ranthambore? Who's been to Ranthambore? Tell me, do you know what this is? What is this? No, it's actually something representing a tiger. If it was a tiger, we wouldn't be here, I don't think. What's the medium? What does it look like to you?
A photograph.
Okay, who says it looks like a photograph? You all said, put your hands up. Photograph, who says? Put your hands up, you guys. Come on, let me see.
It's sketch.
Okay. Who thinks it's something else?
A sketch maybe?
A sketch? How do you think this sketch is made?
Charcoal. Charcoal or graphite.
Okay, and how? Okay. These were the people who looked after the tigers. They were the Ranthambore School of Artists that was set up. The Ranthambore School of Artists looked after the tigers. Because of their proximity to the tigers, they slowly started painting and drawing the tiger. And they use here the soot which you get from the exhaust of a car. You put it on a newspaper. You fold your newspaper 9 times. When you fold a newspaper 9 times, you get a tip which is as perfect as any pen. And from that newspaper tip, they made these drawings. Okay, obviously they have a photograph to look at, but the energy, and this is that same artist there who did your Jamni Roy Christ, the little Jamni Roy. So here we are showing different forms of animals. My favorite, I have a sanctuary for abandoned and injured dogs and cats, and so for me the way the humans are treating the dogs is a disgrace. And I hope you as younger people will have a bit more empathy and will hopefully take to task those who show cruelty against the dogs, especially the stray dogs, who are the most beautiful, honest, decent, loyal, and loving creatures in the world. Please understand, just in case you didn't believe me, this is an image of Dattatreya, who was once the Trinity God of Pashupati. And the 4 dogs here represent the 4 Vedas. So the dogs were given the highest respect all throughout our history. The only companion Yudhishthira chose was a dog to the gates of heaven. A dog will never, I'm putting in my 2 pennies on animal welfare, excuse me. A dog will never bite you unless it is worried about its children being attacked or you are attacking it. You got more chance of the human next to you biting you than a dog ever biting you. Here you got the explanation. So one of the great artists that has shown the empathy of the dog is Somnath Hall. Somnath Hall is another great artist. Here you are seeing how from drawings, sculptures are evolved. Here is one of India's greatest international artists and teachers. He was the head of the New York School of Art and Printmaking, Krishna Reddy. And he created in the 50s a very unique intaglio process which brought in multiple viscosity processes so that you would have multiple colors move in a very organic way. So all the forms he was trying to express in the 50s were these great organic forms. This is a spider's web, jellyfish, whirlwind, wave, blossoms, tree trunk, germination, all these kind of ideas. Then you got another great artist who used the folk traditions of India to show his art, Jyoti Bhatt. This is a Hira Jubilee trophy. I had nowhere to put it, so I put it here because it's that. And Munaswamy was one of the great artists of Cholamandal, though he was never allowed in Cholamandal because he had problems with his head, Panika. But this is his version of animal. And here is India's finest artist who took the folk and tribal traditions and inspired his art. Over here, all of you, these are the prize which will change the educational system of India. That is the film booklet. In the film booklet are the original credits, the storylines, the lyrics, all the cover images, what's the next feature. Without this booklet, you cannot really teach the history of film, and you can't teach the history of many related subjects. And therefore, this was the prize part of our collection. This is a little drop. We've now collected nearly 89% of all films ever made. So this will one day, very shortly, you'll see how this is helping you understand your subject. Turn around and you will see a small sample of the archive of India's most celebrated international filmmaker, not just then, but even now. No one really liked Satyajit Ray, and it wasn't just for the sake of name. He truly was a great Renaissance polymathic mind. He was a graphic designer also. He was a book illustrator. This is his book illustration for children for Bengali script. He was a writer, he was a filmmaker, cinematographer, he loved music. He had a great relationship with Ravi Shankar. And when they parted, Ravi Shankar was asked, how was Satyajit Ray as a musician? He was okay. Because he would interfere, he was tell Ravi Shankar, aise karo, so obviously, ab kya bole. So here are some samples of part of the archive, original letters by him, documents, all kinds of different archives which will be accessible to all of you in a few months. So, as I said, understanding different facets of India, whether it's the way to understand her through pilgrimage, whether it's the concept of an Orientalism, where the Westerner wants to see India, whether it's going to an architectural heritage. So that's the change that has to be brought about. And then we come to the greatest energy of India in her creative world, and that is of cinema. So in cinema, there's millions and millions of objects in the world on this subject. We have probably the greatest that was seen. We can only give a few samples. And the way we decided, we just gave one introductory wall. We put one photograph, the first photograph of Watson's Hotel, where the first film was shown by the Lumiere brothers when they came to India. And remember, cinema was introduced to India barely 5 months after it was launched in Paris. So India was always in par with the development of cinema. We never gave it that kind of documentary support. We never gave it that intellectual support, educational support, material support. And then as it slowly became a source of entertainment, it was very difficult then to change certain parts. But I'll show you a much deeper. So you've got someone like a Himanshu Rai. Many great entrepreneurs came up, the Madans, the Prabhat Studios, Imperial Studios, New Theatres, and he gave rise to Bombay Talkies. Then we are just trying to show one film of the period of the 50s, which was the transformation period of India from a Neador to Avara to Jhansi Ki Rani, one focusing on the divide between rural India and urban India, one focusing as much on the greed of urban India and the imaginative world, one focusing on the past and our struggle to become India and the kind of epic proportions. And then we use the example of one classic film, Pakiza, and different art forms in the material. And like this is the Golden Jubilee Trophy of Pakiza. The world probably has not seen this for about 50 years because it's lost to humanity in a way. It's not in museums, it's not in anywhere. Now the kind of craftsmanship that goes into this, again, that's been lost. So if you see the trophies today, you have here, and these are some of the great trophies, whether it's Bobby, whether it's Yadav Ki Barat, whether it was an icon for RK Studios, whether it's over there, some of Amitabh Bachchan trophies. The craftsmanships in those trophies reflect what is the nature of artisan policy, how are we respecting our crafts, how are we respecting those artistic lives which are not making very much money, which seem to be not so relevant. But unless you nurture that, you lose a very important part of India. So, and India's had more artisans than any other country in the world. So nurturing the craftsmanship, whether it's in cinema, whether it's in rural India, whether, look at behind you, the little Buddha made from jute. Now that kind of Buddha, look at the Buddh Gaya sandalwood work. Look at the small Sanchi stupa. That kind of craftsmanship is gone now. Even if you want to bring it back, you can't, because the families have been destroyed, they've not been nurtured, they've gone to the urban centers, they've lost their livelihood, their sense of community. So all of these questions get taken up. Now over here is a section with the actual artworks which made the publicity of cinema. People only think of cinema that you watch a film. That is why one of the biggest problems in India was that we had this great love for cinema, but we didn't have a great cinematic culture. So a country like France can claim a great cinematic culture because it wasn't just watching the film. It was everything around the film, the art of the film, the criticism of the film, the discussion, the filmmaking processes, relationships to the rest of the world, taken from literature, taken from other sources of drama, poetry. All the arts are working together to create a culture. that cultural framework for cinema never got created deeply enough, because then the box office took over. And so apart from the great artwork, look at this Ganga Jamna. This is the original hoarding of Ganga Jamna when it was released in Jamna Cinema in Tardio. Now, the quality of these things are gone forever. And you can see there, Mangal Pandey is the last artwork, and obviously that has a certain energy also. But this world is now gone forever. It will never come back. And then we come to another facet of Indian cinema, which was in a way the Jubilee, the concept of the Jubilee, whether it was through a trophy, whether it was through awards of throwing a Jubilee party. We've got beautiful albums on, let's say, Janjeev's 50th Golden Jubilee. There was a party at Sun and Sand. So Prakash Mehra had first of all the 50th Jubilee of Janjeev, and he also launched Hera Pheri, his next movie. He also launched Himalaya Ke God Mein, or Himalaya Se Ucha, I can't remember now. And those documents are important guidelines for mapping out histories of the box office. Now, I have purposely compared here two different worlds, the Jubilee Trophy and the film festival catalogue cover, because there are two different worlds that look at cinema very differently. One looked at cinema as an art form, one looked at cinema as an entertainment form first and foremost, and a source of box office receipt. Both of these have existed in India. Both of them have created. So with the art of cinema that goes into the publicity of a film, the concept of the Jubilee and the box office of a film, and the film festivals which nurtured and promoted the artistic, or what we used to call parallel cinema, from the Satyajit Rays to the Ritik Ghataks to the Minal Sens, Shyam Benegals, Adur Gopalakrishnans, all of them who saw Mani Kaul, Kumar Shani, who saw cinema first as an art form, then as a source of entertainment. And then the greatest actor, superstar of Indian cinema as an example. So you see an Amar Akbar Anthony, Lavaris, Namak Halal, Diwar. Now, they have their own energy. It resonates with our people. You've got two great icons for RK Studios, even greater tradition. So this together, here's another one, Ram Tevi Ganga Meli. So with the Jubilee concept, with the film festival concept, with the arts of cinema, you have for the first time, trying to put together how a culture gets developed. And then we come to our curiosity cabinets. But before we come to the curiosity cabinets, we come to this framework here. And this is at the heart of our archive. And I've not privileged it in this exhibition. And that is the world of cinema, not just Indian cinema, but the way the world of cinema and its archives, its scholarship, its documents got created. So whether you start from Thomas Edison to the greatest probably cinematic figure in the world, Charlie Chaplin, to the birth of comedy in Hollywood, so from a Buster Keaton to a Keystone Cops, to different facets of comedy. So from the 1900s, 1910s, you then come to the great period where German Expressionism was a very important part of world cinema, because as many great German film directors started leaving Germany because of the changes in the political climate, with Hitler coming to power, Hitler then changing the nature of creative freedoms. So great film directors like Fritz Lang, Joseph von Sternberg, Erich von Stroheim, F.W. Monod, Sisberg, various came to Hollywood and gave Hollywood an absolutely unique flavor. And that scholarship is what we have one of the greatest archives in the world on, and that will be part of the next exhibition, where we will privilege this world. So you can see here, these are the original handbills of Hollywood films released in India, released in the Indian theatres. At that time, Capital Cinema was a big cinema. There were many other, Wellington, there were various films. And then came Regal, Eros, Metro, New Empire, and Liberty finally on the year of independence. So this finishes one part with the curiosity. The curiosity cabinets are very important parts of any great exhibition. It puts very unique little bits and bobs for you to discover for yourself. It's like a child going into a dollhouse and finding beautiful things and playing with them and just having fun. And yet they could be very rare and unique items. So you got here the original booklets on Mughal-e-Azam and Gone with the Wind. The first postcards of Ravi Varma paintings. Various things on how Mughal-e-Azam showed itself. Cinematic chemistry. Raj Kapoor, Nargis albums, the first postcards of Hollywood, small little things in Chori Chori, cinematic chemistry, various bits and bobs. So that's for the public to find and explore themselves. All right, you've got enough for that section now. I think that's too much on cinema. I'm not saying no to that, but the point is the merger of cinema with the other arts. At the end of the day, cinema carries, because of the public interest in cinema, you have to then carry other disciplines which don't have the same interest. Okay, so that's the main objective here, that cinema gives an energy so that the fine arts gets integrated, the popular arts, architecture, photography, all of these get a certain role and importance which otherwise they would not get. Okay? So one important part of our research framework for India studies is the animal, human, nature, cosmic continuum. That there is this underlying thread which unites all living souls. Whether it's an animal, whether it's a human species, whether it's the nature of all our flora, fauna, nature, or whether it's the stars and the planets and the cosmos. All of this has a logic and a continuous relationship which doesn't get broken. We may try to dominate one, privilege one, break down one, but at the end of the day, when we understand that linkage, we are much more in harmony with. So one part of this exhibition is the relationship between the fine arts and how they've expressed animals and human nature relationship with animals and nature. So from the great, this is one great example in Ranthambore. Now in Ranthambore is one of the few places in India where both nature reserves, animal reserves and architectural reserves are tackled together. There's no other place really that has that synergy. So Ranthambore, and there's a group of artists who lived and protected the tiger, who then became artists because they understood this is pencil drawing. How? From charcoal. They take charcoal from the soot of a car, from the exhaust pipe. They take a newspaper, fold it 9 times, and from the tip of the newspaper, the drawings are made. So that's the quality of the drawing. Obviously, there's a photograph from which they use, but that again comes back to the craftsmanship of India, that there are thousands and thousands of fine, creative people across our country who don't get the support they need to develop. Then this was just to put perspective that the cat, Jamni Roy's cat. Then the whole concept of Dattatreya, one of the once upon a time, the god of Pashupati, and it needs to be revived because people, the way they're treating the stray animals today, the dogs and the cats, is absolutely shameful. It's the sign when the human being reaches their lowest level of gatiyapan, that they can't look after the most helpless, the most honest, the most decent and loving of creatures. And the dog has been the oldest companion of human beings. Yudhishthira only took a dog. This is the depiction of Dattatreya. Who are the 4 dogs? They are the 4 Vedas. So from the time of ancient Hindu philosophy, the dog has been respected. And today we have people killing dogs, beaten dogs on the street. It's their home. Now, how do you get across that understanding? Look, you can't force people to love. You can only open their mind and give them opportunities to learn. So art has, Somnath Hall was one of the great artists who depicted the dog in many forms, its helplessness, because he was actually focusing on wounds, the concept of wounds. Human wounds, animal wounds, wound होता है. इसको लगता है या मुझे लगता है, एक ही बात है. That concept of the wound is what he is trying to express. Similarly, you take one of the great artists of India, D.P. Roy Chaudhary, and how he's depicted a dog feeding her children. You look at the concept here of, this is nothing to do with the dog, but it's the relationship between drawings and sculpture. A great artist like Dhanraj Bhagat. Then these are 2 examples of one of India's greatest printmakers, Krishna Reddy, who from 1955 to about 1968 created some of the most unique, innovative intaglios of the world, where natural forms were the inspiration. So spider's web, jellyfish, germination, whirlpool, tree trunk, blossoming, the wave, pastoral, all these kinds of natural organic forms he expressed through very unique intaglios. Then you've got artists like Jyoti Bhatt, who tried to revive the craft traditions in the fine arts and also take forward certain aspects of it. हीरा को वैसे ही मैंने याद डाल दिया क्योंकि यहाँ भी एनिमल्स थे, सोचने दो लोग को हीरा और ज्योति भट्ट का क्या मिलन है. Munuswami, again another great artist who used the line to create a sense of Indianness. In the 60s, in Cholamandal and South India, great artists like Panikkar, Ramanujam, Sultan Ali, Munuswami, Bhaskaran, Vasudev, many others were trying to experiment that how can we be modern and Indian and uniquely ourselves. So these experiments, in the Western concept, the line is always usually an outline. It's an outline to something else to focus on. But in Indian philosophy, the line is an imaginary joy in itself. I don't need the line to be an outline. The line itself is the beauty because it comes from the inner world. That's the difference between those two worlds. One represented the outside material world, one represented the inner movement of one's idealism. And that difference is what became the East-West dialogue to a large extent. And these great paintings of Sultan Ali, the Pramanu Darshan series, one of the unique attempts of using folk and tribal symbolism to express modernism in Indian art. Then we have another great tradition in India, and that is of the book tradition. So the book tradition has an old tradition from Abhindranath Tagore, Hussain, Satyajit Ray, Ganesh Pine, K.G. Subramaniam, all the way to the younger generation of Namrata Bachchan, where her recent book, Full Circle, or her lovely illustrated book of her grandfather's poetry, Haribhai Bachchan in Madhushala, beautiful artworks, part of the tradition of bookmaking and book illustration. So that, and there's some original artworks from those books. And so this is another section which we are also taking forward. Now, obviously, part of our film section, we have thousands of archives, and we've chosen to just give one example of probably India's most celebrated and greatest film director in many ways, Satyajit Ray. So every kind of book, journal, magazine, letter, document, booklets on him, everything is, for the first time, will be available to the public on a grand scale, integrated within the framework of India studies. This great Devi poster, which was for the French release of Devi, when it was shown in France for the first time. And it's very strange. Yesterday, a day before, Victor Banerjee was here at the opening, and he mentioned that the lady who played Durga in Devi actually died day before yesterday. So, you know, it's ironic of all the posters we chose, God bless her soul, but the fact is that, you know, there's thousands of stories every day. You can't focus on every one. So, Satyajit Ray's Working Stills by Nimai Ghosh, the great poster. Look at Kabuliwala's poster. Look at the design. This was Tapan Sinha's Kabuliwala and Ritik Ghatak's poster. So the Bengali poster had a unique design sensibility because they used the font of the text like an artwork, which most Hindi film posters or South Indian film posters did not do. So that's why Bengali film posters are a bit more beautiful and aesthetically pleasing and graphically exciting, because they use the font, image, dialogue, jugalbandi in a better way. All right? Take, for example, the whole journey of India's struggle to be herself, to create an India Studies conceptual framework, is from the 1880s to the 2020s. Now, all 6,000 years of India lives in 140 years. So we have always this violent, non-violent dilemma in all civilizations. India took it to an extreme because of one individual, passionate thinker, and that was Gandhiji. But at the same time, when you struggle against foreign power, violence is the norm of most ways. Now, Gandhiji, people think they understand. Our objective is to show, no, you don't. There are many ways to look at even the most established icons of our century. You look at him from here. Now, if you see something like this, most people don't get it, because in the 1870s, 80s, Hindu mythology was shown in the Calcutta presses in Bengal from Kansari Para, Chor Bagan, Calcutta Art Studio. Look at that. Yamma, Shiva, Makhandaya. Then Ravi Varma press came along. People started copying the Ravi Varma press. And then you see how political propaganda uses myth, uses religion to bring about a relationship and communication with the people. So Gandhiji becomes Shiva, the British Empire becomes Yam, and Makhandaya becomes Bharat Mata. Now, this relationship between the secular and the religious and the struggle for one's identity is always entwined in India. You can't separate it honestly. You can try your best, and it doesn't matter whether it's the most secular-minded person or whether it's someone who has another version. So these things need to be questioned. Everything needs to be re-examined. How do I understand it? How do I make these decisions? How do I know what is the underlying processes? So when you look at a Gandhiji, you got one perspective. You look at Gandhiji here, Polish poster of Attenborough's film. You look at a young interpretation by an artist in 2007. You look at these are the original first photographs by Cartier-Bresson, last days of Gandhiji. Nehru announcing Gandhiji's death, the public at the procession of his body being taken to the streets, Gandhi's last visit to Nizamuddin. Then you look, his visit with Rabindranath Tagore, Gandhiji at Dandi. And then you see the whole evolution of a different kind of struggle for independence. When you're also, the frustration of the youth is there. I want independence now. I want to kill my enemy. I want to get them out. So violence is the way you take forward. So Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Subhash Chandra Bose, these are the main icons which took forward that, and how our political propaganda showed it of that time. And you take great artists like Chitto Prasad, one of the greatest artists of India, man of total integrity, and how the first time the arts tried to play a role in fighting against injustice, whether it was the Bengal famine of 42, when K.A. Abbas and others were trying to raise money. So they set up IPTA. And IPTA became one of the great cultural institutions of India in trying to take from the masses, from the people, and giving them a political sensibility, giving them a sense of duty as citizens, as people who are under British rule. And that whole journey. So most people know about Quit India. They don't know about Quit Asia. What was the Quit Asia movement? Because at that same time, the Japanese were also bombing India, especially Chittagong. And the British wanted to fight the Japanese because they were part of the powers with Germany. So all the politics of the time is still not clearly understood. And the visual image is a much deeper way to tackle these issues than the written word. The written word is deeply distorted. It's already gone through so many interpretations. The visual image is still fresh. Therefore, the prejudice, the preconceptions are less when you open up an educational framework. And that's what this is about. How do you create the first detailed, world-class conceptual framework for India studies? How do you reach out to all the universities and schools of the world and say, there's not one course, imagine, not one course in the whole world for India studies as a 3-year graduate course. Now why? Because we've never collected a world-class archive. We've never understood the relationship between the image and the text meaningfully. We've brought so many prejudices and preconceptions to the interpretation of India. You can't decide what you want to show about India. She tells you the scale. She tells you the complexity of the diversity. You can't pick and choose what you want to tell. You'll never solve the problem then. So the whole point is, unless you lay it all out in the most grand, neutral, passionate manner, and you need both. You need great objectivity and you need deep passion for being as fair as possible. So you take a simple, look at it, imagine this. One simple 2-ana lithograph. And in that is the whole history of the Congress movement on one way. Every personality of importance, their proximity to Gandhiji, left or right, above or below, were they related to this, were they related to that, in one simple lithograph. Much more exciting for the students to understand this than to be read in boring books with words and words and words. So that energy, today education is facing that problem. It's always faced that problem. How do you excite and inspire the youth? It's not simply, you can't teach anymore. You have to lead them to a self-discovery. You have to lead them to an inner sense of awareness. How someone's identity is molded is the choice of the individual. That choice can only be fulfilled if self-discovery is the main mode of education rather than teaching or even learning, or even the more fashionable word, mentoring. What is mentoring or learning? You have to give them a vision. You have to give them guidance. You have to give them all the raw materials. You can't just tell them something. So the heart of our educational problem today is this lack of access to the great, meaningful visual documents that make the last 200 years of India. That's what we are trying to now give. So this is one small part, part one. Now you take part two. Now from here we can go in two directions. You come here and see this way. Okay? So when you come from there, you have two ways of looking at it. You can look at, one way is to see it from the point of travel. Let them also be, they're part of the audience now.
You see from there, please.
Okay. They are part of the travel, or you can go deeper into the political responsibilities, the social responsibilities of the creative mind. So let's say we take this path and we come to how you discover India. How did India want herself to be understood? It's a very important way, that how did we come to know what is India? Who is she? How do we study her? How do we explore her? How do we visit her? Where do we place the emphasis? What do we ignore? What do we not ignore? So all throughout first travel was basically about pilgrimage. We would go to a Palitana, we would go to a Bodh Gaya, we would go to a Nalanda, we would go to a Banaras, we would go to Brahmeshwaram, we would go to Palni, Tiruvallalai, lots of places, Sharangam, that's there. So the whole concept of pilgrimage, and then pilgrimage suddenly gets a boost when the first railways come about. So because of railways, you can travel further, and because of that, you want to promote, आइए, Sharangam के पास आइए, या Allahabad आइए, या Banaras आइए, या Mathura आइए. So these posters were created by a great artist called M.V. Durandar. So these are the first posters created in India to facilitate travel. And you notice that in the 1920s, it is going to the holy sites. And in this case I've given you Sharangam, but I can only show in this exhibition one sample of the thousands that we have built up. So you have on, as I said, Mathura, you have on Allahabad, you have on Palni, you have on Rameshwaram, Tiruvannamalai, and so on. Okay? Then you had the other way of looking at India. She was part of the Orient. So the Orient had, obviously today it's seen with a great kind of prejudice because of certain perspectives of post-colonial studies. Edward Said's Orientalism in 78 changed that perspective to a large extent. And as a result, you can see the kind of design tropes that are used. So you can see the turban, you can see the Chinese and the Japanese haircuts, you can see the elephant, you can see the Vietnamese topi, you can see other parts. So even though this is a great piece of design, we bring our post-colonial attitude that it's about Orientalism. And as a result, we undermine it as a piece of graphic design and as a piece of history. It's part of the journey. Whether you agree, disagree, is neither here nor there. Respect it as part of one piece of the jigsaw. Contextualize it with another piece. Look at it here. Here's another example. Now they started choosing particular monuments. So in this case, it's Chhatar Manzir. It could be Bodh Gaya. It could be so many other monuments that were chosen in Jaipur, in Udaipur, in hundreds of parts of India. Now you see how a poster is designed. And you look here and you see the actual photograph from which a poster is taken, its designs. So these original photographs, in this case by V. Pont. क्या हो गया यार? Why are you so, let it be. Whether it is the pilgrimage framework, whether it is the concept of the Orient, whether it is using the monument as the focus, or in this case, you can actually interpret what are they trying to present about India. Look at the monuments chosen. Look at the way they are presented as a design facet. You got the Taj Mahal, you got the Qutub Minar, you got Buland Darwaza. So you got three traditionally coming from a Indian Islamic background. You got Shravan Bagola, Indian Jain background. You got Sanchi, Indian Buddhist background. And in the corner you have Jodhpur Fort, so a Hindu background. So you are creating an idea of India where you want to represent a secularism, but that secularism is so biased that it creates the kind of issues we are facing today. And if you understood that when you express any idea, the point is to do it fairly. When you compensate excessively, when you try to give positive discrimination, when you try to, and that's also understandable in many ways, because the majority always tries to protect the minority. And that's only as long as the majority is humble, the majority understands that there will be other facets which you can't talk about. But this was the kind of secularism which is depicted in this poster. So what this is trying to say is that the visual speaks at many levels if you know how to interpret it. But because we haven't learnt the way to interpret the visual, we are facing the problem where everything is text, everything demands. For example, people complain, why no captions? No captions because we want you to look at the visual. There may be other practical reasons there's no captions. But the bottom line is, for 10 years, I've never worried about captions. Okay, I handed over to someone else to do, knowing that basically most of them will never do it properly. Because the image is not being read by the public. And therefore, the image and the visual is not part of our educational system in any meaningful way as a source of knowledge. It simply is a complement to the text. And that's one of the biggest problems facing education and academia. And this exhibition is showing that that can change radically. Discovery via Rediscovering India is 30 years journey in creating the first structure, framework for India studies. सारी दुनिया में अभी तक एक 3 साल का अंडरग्रेजुएट कोर्स इंडिया स्टडीज़ के लिए नहीं है. तो हम 30 साल से कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि वैसा प्लेटफॉर्म बनाया जाए, कैसे बनाया जाए, फ्रॉम द आर्ट्स, सिनेमा, आर्किटेक्चर, पॉलिटिकल साइंसेस, सोशल साइंसेस, ऑल द विजुअल आर्ट्स, उसमें वो जो एनर्जी है, आप देखो, whether it's a film poster, whether it's the fine arts of great artists, whether it's political propaganda, whether it's travel posters, whether it's architectural monuments, whether it's to do with science fiction, mystery. We've created a unique framework. And now to make this framework open to all the universities and colleges and schools, ये exhibition, पहला exhibition है, जो दिखा रहा है दुनिया को कि देखिए, इंडिया ऐसी चीज़ है कि आप, you can't take out what you like. It's like the greatest pickle in the world. जैसे नींबू और कोरिएंडर और टर्निप और शलगम और सब एक साथ जुड़ा रहता है. आपको पता नहीं कि कैसे इनका स्वभाव बदलता है, धूप कैसे लगती है, एक का जूस दूसरे पे कैसे असर होता है. ये जो पूरा तरीका है हिंदुस्तान, इंडिया को बनाने के लिए, हमारे आर्ट्स, हमारे सिनेमास, इनको समझने के लिए कोई सिस्टम नहीं है हमारे कॉलेजेस में, स्कूल्स में, यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में. और बाहर देश के लोग आते हैं और समझते हैं, वो भी अपने अलग अलग प्री कॉन्सेप्शंस के साथ आते हैं. तो ये एग्जिबिशन उसको सब उल्टा कर देता है कि देखिए क्या क्या है, इनका डायलॉग कैसे चलता है. व्हाट्स द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन अ गोल्डन जुबली अवार्ड and a poster and an artwork and a book, a journal, a magazine, the dialogues, the discourses, the political events, the history. और सबसे बड़ी बीमारी हमारे देश में ये है कि आदमी और जब इमेज को देखता है, वो सोचते हैं कि शब्दों के साथ इसका एक्सप्लेनेशन होना चाहिए. नहीं, इमेज अपना नॉलेज है, इसको पढ़ने के लिए वो शिक्षा हमें दिया नहीं गया. इसका फॉर्म है, कंपोजिशन है, लाइन है, कलर है, टेक्सचर है. इसको समझने के लिए स्कूल्स ने कोई ज़्यादा कोशिश नहीं किया है. इसलिए आज हमारे नौजवान लोग और इवन द ओल्डर एज पीपल, दे डोंट नो हाउ टू रीड एन इमेज. एग्जिबिशन में बोलते लोग कैप्शन दीजिए. कैप्शन क्यों दे? आपको पता है ये क्या बोल रहा है, अपने आप नज़र आता है. और नहीं नज़र आता है तो कोशिश कीजिए समझने के लिए. just to position in देखो इसके पहले क्या हुआ, इसके बाद में क्या हुआ, इसके दाएं को क्या हुआ, इसके बाएं को क्या हुआ. What's the relationship between Manoj Kumar and Dilip Kumar? What's the relationship between Dilip Kumar and Indian cinema? Relationship between Indian cinema and film festival and Jubilee Trophy and box office and entertainment and lifestyle and leisure and education. ये सब एक बिल्कुल जुड़ा हुआ है. लेकिन हमारा इकोनॉमिक एजुकेशनल सिस्टम इसको तोड़ के समझाते हैं हमें, और ये तोड़ने में सारा जो रस होता है निकल जाता है. That is why idealism today is at the back foot. Idealism जो आइडिया लेता है, जिसके दिमाग से आइडिया निकलता है, वो सोचते हैं कि हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते, अब आइडिया किसी और को दे देते हैं, उनको इम्प्लीमेंट करने दो. बिजनेस को दे देते हैं, गवर्नमेंट को दे देते हैं, फिलैंथ्रोपी को दे देते हैं, और फिर रोते हैं कि यार हमारा आइडिया कुछ और बन गया है. क्यों बन गया है? क्योंकि आपने किसी और को दे दिया है. यू थिंक अबाउट इट. कोई ऐसा मौका नहीं है देश में जहाँ म्यूजिक नहीं बज रहा हो, लेकिन यूट्यूब ने स्ट्राइक करना है. अब आप अपने आप सोच,
कितने दिन का है, क्या क्या लोगों को देखने को मिलेगा यहाँ पे?
यहाँ 15 दिन का एग्जीबिशन है. फॉर्म आप आगे पहले जब आते हो, फ्रॉम 1880s to 2020s, 140 साल की इंडिया का इतिहास, आर्ट से, सिनेमा से, आर्किटेक्चर से, स्कॉलरशिप से, द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन एनिमल, ह्यूमन नेचर एंड द कॉस्मोस. ये जो हिमालय के रिश्ता क्या है हमारे साथ, कश्मीर का रिश्ता क्या है, इन सारे चीज़ों का आर्ट से कैसे लोगों को समझ आती है, ये एग्जीबिशन का मकसद है. बेटा
कुछ बताइएगा, जो ये बड़ा पोस्टर है यहाँ पर, उसके बारे में.
ये यूनिक एक्सपेरिमेंट था इंडियन सिनेमा में. मनोज कुमार ऐसे व्यक्ति थे जो हर पार्ट ऑफ फिल्म मेकिंग में अपना हाथ डालते थे, इन डायरेक्शन, प्रोडक्शन, एडिटिंग, स्क्रीन प्ले, म्यूजिक, पब्लिसिटी मटेरियल. और उन्होंने एक आइडिया था कि क्रांति के रिलीज के पहले हम एक महान कोई आर्ट वर्क बनाए that can go to the main metros in Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi, Calcutta, Madras. इसमें कोई नाम ना हो, क्रांति का नाम नहीं है, मनोज कुमार का नाम, नो ब्रांडिंग, खाली आर्ट. सो पंडित राम कुमार शर्मा को उन्होंने बोला कि आप ये पोस्टर बनाइए. 12 शीटर है, तो ये 12 शीटर गया था. अब बिल्कुल 1-2 कॉपीज हो गए दुनिया में. और इट शोज वो पीरियड था जहाँ आर्ट और सिनेमा का मिलन आखिर स्टेज पे था. जैसे आप बात देखो, गंगा जमुना को देखो, ओरिजिनल आर्ट वर्क, यहूदी का देख लो, दायरा का देख लो, अंदाज का देख लो, मेरा नाम जोकर का देख लो. उस ज़माने में आर्ट और सिनेमा का ज़्यादा मिलन था. अब इसके बाद लास्ट आप बात देख लो, मंगल पांडे. उसके बाद बिल्कुल ये हैंड पेंटेड पब्लिसिटी मटेरियल स्टॉप्ड. ओके
सर, ये जानना है मुझे, आपने ये 12 शीटर पोस्टर है ना, शायद एक ही है?
नहीं, एक तो ये नहीं बोल सकते, 1-2 और हो सकते हैं दुनिया में, हमें पता नहीं.
लेकिन क्रांति का एक ही फिल्म का 12 शीटर पोस्टर है ना, और कोई
नहीं, 12 शीटर पोस्टर्स मे बी सेपरेट. दिस इज अ प्री रिलीज without the branding of the film. That's different. That is unique.
That's only one like that.
We've only known of this experiment. No other film experimented like this. Because, as I said, this decision is only possible when, see, apart from Raj Kapoor and Manoj Kumar, there were very few other directors who were also producers, who were also involved in all parts of making the film. So Manoj Kumar had that control, Raj Kapoor had that control, there were few others. So unless you have full control, you can't do certain things also. That is, that's another part of the way things are built in life.
सर, ये आपको कहाँ से मिला
ये पोस्टर? बाबा, आप ये क्रांति के पोस्टर के ऊपर क्यों इतने सवाल हो रहा है?
Okay, Junoon, Mughal-e-Azam and few others.
See, Junoon is a very unique. These are the quads. एक ही cinema group थे दुनिया में, the Curzon Cinema in England. And they had the great designer called Peter Strausfeld. And Peter Strausfeld designed a particular kind of quad. So whether it was Junoon, Jalsaghar, whether it was films from Poland, films from Denmark, films from any other part of the world, France, when they showed in England, This was the unique design sensibility. So, see, in this exhibition, I can only give you one sample. There are thousands to show. वो इंटरनेट में होगा जब रिसर्च सेंटर खुलेगा. अभी के लिए मैं आपको एक ही दिशा दिखा सकता हूँ कि ऐसा सैंपल है. तो जुनून को आप देख सकते हो, फिर आप गूगल कर सकते हो पीटर स्ट्राउसफील्ड, कर्जन सिनेमा, quads in British cinema, and you learn more.
And what about Mughal-e-Azam, sir?
Mughal-e-Azam is a famous, हमने बहुत बार इसको पहले ज़माने में ऑक्शन भी किया था. अब ये हमने अपने आर्काइव के लिए लिया था. There is no film like Mughal-e-Azam. Not just the film itself, उसका बनाने का पूरा तरीका. एक बंदा के आसिफ, if you notice, 15 साल उसको लगे. He took the first cover of Film India in 1945 when Chandra Mohan and Nargis were the stars. 15 साल के बाद उसने 10 covers लिए. वो जो जुनून और passion उसमें था. और that's why for us K. Asif is an important factor because हर हिंदुस्तानी, हर इंडियन में एक मुगल आज़म बैठा हुआ है. लेकिन वो मुगल आज़म को निकालने के लिए जो स्टैमिना, लव, पैशन, मनी, अपॉर्चुनिटी, एनर्जी इज रिक्वायर्ड, वो नहीं मिल रहा है लोगों का सपोर्ट. तो वो सपोर्ट हम कोशिश करेंगे कि ये रिसर्च सेंटर से थोड़ा सा सपोर्ट मिले कि हर आदमी का मुगल आज़म